Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and it is a good day when we have these folks back in the studio and to talk about some more cool stuff they are doing. We got Juan Carlos Acosta, Artistic Director. Is it SACRA or SACRA Profana?
SACRA.
SACRA, that's what I thought, Profana. He's been on a bunch of times over here, joined by his colleague, Dr. Cory Hibbs, composer, lyricist, and artist for the organization, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel, the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc. And since Kristen is in this space, she loves theater, she loves singing, she loves writing. She was excited to see you folks on the docket, were you not?
I was very excited, yes. I love our arts organizations. They are plentiful in San Diego, so it's always a pleasure.
We'll let you get started with that, Juan Carlos.
Let's do it, yeah. Juan Carlos, could you tell us just a bit about the mission?
Absolutely. So SACRA Profana is a professional choral organization dedicated to really engaging our community in the contemporary choral music. So composers, artists, living composers, particularly local ones or Southern California-based composers. So it's a pretty fantastic ensemble.
Very cool. And so can you tell me a bit about the origins? Like what need did it kind of arise from, or how did it get started?
Absolutely. Our founding director, Christian Oberoi, founded the group 16 years ago, hard to believe. And it was really a group that was based with young professional singers, and it specialized at the time in contemporary choral music as well as some of the older stuff, Renaissance stuff, because at the time he saw a gap in our choral community. That we had a lot of fantastic large organizations like San Diego Master Chorale, La Jolla Symphony Chorus that were dedicated to the big orchestral stuff, but not to the chamber things. And it was a way to keep people singing out of college. And so it was a great way. Yeah.
Great.
So, Cory, how did you get involved in all this? Have you been interested in being a lyricist and a composer, artist since you were a kid? Does your family have a background in it, or no, I just jumped in myself?
Yeah, since I was a kid. Actually, my mom has a story that apparently, I don't remember, but apparently when I was a child, I said I wanted to write songs for a living. I don't remember that, but but apparently it's been in my blood the whole time. My dad is also a musician.
Oh, okay.
He's so I grew up with him singing and playing the guitar, yeah, and when I went off to college, I've always been involved in music, and when I went off to college, I knew that's what I wanted to study, and so I went to San Diego State for my undergrad, which was awesome. That's where I met Juan back in 1999.
The 1900s.
Yes, we were just talking about how now we've known each other more than half our lives, so that's great.
Nice.
And then I went on to Boston University for my master's in composition, and then the Peabody Conservatory for my doctorate in composition, as well as another master's degree in music theory pedagogy. And after that, I moved to New York. I was performing and composing, and then I moved back to San Diego, where I taught at San Diego State music theory and composition. And now I get to collaborate with great people like Juan and SACRA Profana.
No, that's terrific. I too am an SDSU grad, 105 years before you were there. I'll tell you that right now, on this. I think we brought this up before, Juan Carlos, and you can certainly add to it, Cory. As you know, we love having groups like yours on the show. Yeah. Music and visual performing arts and theater and everything in between is such an equalizer. It certainly levels the playing field on so many different aspects. Talk about how important that is.
Yeah, well, like I've said before, the human voice is one of the instruments that, everybody has access to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that in that, everybody can come to this playing field. And the voice is special in that, we have words to work with, in this case, beautiful words.
Right.
And it just transcends, I think, a level of communication that I just appreciate so much.
Right. And, Cory, as we talk about this, Kristen and I, all the time, especially with the field that she's in, obviously being in charge of San Diego Writers Inc., but also her being a performer and a playwright and all that business. We need to find wherever the empathy DNA flew out of this solar system. We need to bring it back in. Talk about how that's important. And do you communicate that to your students?
Yeah, I actually a while ago, when I was working with the San Diego Opera. This was maybe 10 years ago or so.
Is it when the Campbells were there?
Ian
Campbell?
Yes. I was the composer in residence for our Words and Music project, which is a project that goes out into schools, local schools, and actually composes operas with the students. So we did like a residency, like a couple month residency with these students, and mostly middle and high school students. And that was one of the big things. One of the big aims of that program was we can take these stories, we can examine them, and then create pieces of music theater around them that really emphasizes the connection that these characters can have to these students. So we were taking these stories and we were putting them in, we would take something like a fairy tale and we would put it in a modern context that these students knew well. So in these students' communities, using a musical language and a written language that these students came up with, that they understand. And so I think, the process of creating a piece can really, bring that empathetic skill to the forefront and really help develop that.
Yeah, well, we need a lot of that, without question. We're chatting with Juan Carlos Acosta. He's the artistic director for SACRA Profana, joined by his colleague. They've been working together for 25 years, if I've got the math right on that.
Yeah.
Dr. Cory Hibbs, composer, lyricist, and artist. For the group, I'm Drew Schlosberg, as you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, doing great things in San Diego County, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel, the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc. Kristen?
Yeah. So let's talk about the upcoming concert. So A Space to Belong. First of all, so it's at St. Paul's Cathedral, which I've only unfortunately been there for a funeral, but the acoustics must be amazing.
Yes.
So do you perform often in that space?
Not often, but it's it's actually a church that I grew up in. I sang. My first real formal musical experience was in that church as a boy soprano, believe it or not, and then have returned to that space many times over the years. And actually was just texting the music director there yesterday. And but one of the reasons we picked this space is because it has been a pillar for the marginalized community in San Diego. Every year they host Light Up the Cathedral for Pride Month. And so they have always been a very supportive and ingrained in the community organization. Plus, the acoustic is unlike anything else in San Diego. So it is
really,
absolutely, it's one of our favorite places to sing. It's a little bit overwhelming actually for singers at first because there's so much sound that it feels like you can't hear anything. You just process it. But it's really a very special place.
That is very cool.
I was very excited when Juan told me that that's where we were going to be, for sure. I felt like that was the gold standard.
Absolutely.
And I was thrilled that that's where my piece was going to premiere.
Yeah. So Cory, tell us more about the upcoming concert.
Yeah. So this is a collaboration between Juan and myself and SACRA Profana. And Juan and I had been talking about doing collaborations for a long time, and the choir had premiered a few of my pieces in the past, but never something this big. And we wanted to do specifically a large piece together. We wanted to do a piece where we were able to workshop the piece with the choir and get feedback from the piece. And I also had kind of taken a self-imposed sabbatical for a couple years from composing, and I wanted to get back into it with a bang. So that's how we kind of came up with this concept together, and it has been magical.
That's amazing. So kind of start to finish, how long have you been working on this piece?
About a year.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about the collaboration for longer, but it really hit the ground running about a year ago.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted to do a piece about the queer experience. I knew I wanted to bring something personal to it. So that's how that's the genesis for how the piece kind of started to come together and what it looks like today. I began writing the poetry first, and then started working on the music. And we've been having for the past, I think about since January, about once a month, we've had a workshop with the choir where I've been able to bring in my notes, bring in what I've worked on so far, get feedback not only in terms of what it sounds like, they sang it for me, but also in terms of, is this message that I'm trying to communicate coming across? Does this sound the way I want it to sound? Is this, a piece that works? And so that experience was really, really, really valuable and very life-changing for me.
Yeah, when we come back from break, I'm going to keep on that topic over here. And I know, Kristen, you'll have something to do as you will too. Juan Carlos is, okay, you've had this idea in your head for how long? Okay, and now you're putting it on paper with your, longtime buddy, Juan Carlos, known for 25 years working together. Has it evolved into, man, this thing took a right turn and a left turn and an upside down and inside out?
No, not at all. Looking at your face right now, no, everything was smooth sailing. It was totally fine.
I think I know the answer to my question anyway on that. So we're going to chat about that with Dr. Cory Hibbs, composer, lyricist, and artistic guru, so to speak, for SACRA Profana, joined by his colleague Juan Carlos Acosta, artistic director for SACRA Profana. I'm Drew Schlosberg. Listen to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades. Just doing great things for us folk living in San Diego County. Always pleased to have in the studio with us Juan Carlos Acosta, the artistic director for SACRA Profana, joined by his longtime colleague, Dr. Cory Hibbs, a composer, lyricist, and artist. And joined by my, I'm going to start to say my longtime co-host now.
I like that. That's fine. My muse, my whatever you want to use.
Okay, well, we'll come up with a different adjective every single show on this. She
Perfect.
is, Kristen Fogel is the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc., celebrating their 20th anniversary. So, Cory, we were just chatting about, okay, you've had this idea in your head for a while, correct? When would you say was the genesis of this idea? I know you've been working on it for a year, but were you thinking about this 5 years before this? 10 years before this?
I think this has been the result of a self-evolution that has been happening over probably 10 years or so.
Right.
Up until this point, before I had this self-imposed sabbatical that I mentioned earlier,
right.
I had been, very focused on creating work that met other people's standards. Mm-hmm. Coming out of school, coming out of academia, there's a certain kind of language that you need to speak. And after coming out of this sabbatical, I really wanted to do something that was more personal, something that was riskier, and something that was more community driven. And so that's what I got with this project, which is really exciting.
Right. Again, it's All We Need, Meditations on Queer Being. It's going to be a Saturday, June the 1st at St. Paul's Cathedral at 7 p.m. So we were saying about How many left turns, right turns, every other turns this thing started from when you started working with Juan Carlos?
Yeah, so it started with, it really started with, this general, I knew I wanted to write a piece that was very personal that had to do with a queer experience. Yeah. And in that, I started meditating on the idea of queer spaces and what it means to exist in a world that says, for the most part, that you can't exist or shouldn't exist, or even in some instances don't exist. And yet here we are, we still persist. So that was really the genesis.
Right on, as you should.
Yeah. And that was really the genesis of this, this project. And so it started there, and then it became, after the first workshop, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got from a choir member who was also a member of the queer community, they said, I'm not really getting anything queer from this. This is too general. And that's when I knew, okay, I've got to take a big turn here. I've got to make it, because to me, this is part of the workshop, right? This is one of the big goals. Does this communicate the message that I want it to communicate?
Yeah.
Right.
And in my head, of course, it makes perfect sense because I'm the one who thought of it, right? And I understand all the subtleties. I understand all of the, why I chose this word or this metaphor, but do other people get that? Does it translate? Does it jump that communication divide there? And so that was the biggest piece of feedback I got. And so I went home and I wrote 5 or 6 more poems that were really, really, really personal and really highlighted this experience and was very specific. And so in that sense, it went from, I think it's probably going to be like a 20-minute long piece to now it's an hour-long, full-length, a full evening piece. So that was a huge shift. It went from being just a collection of maybe, 8 or so choral pieces for 4-part choir to now being, 21 movements with soloists and a trio and choir with divisi and all this stuff and recitative and songs, and it has a much more kind of like operatic music theater feel to it. It's much more of an oratorio now than it was just a choral song cycle. So it's definitely expanded.
Right. So Juan Carlos, when you are looking at all this, you're seeing this evolution. Now you're putting this together with, of course, Cory. How do you put this puzzle together? Is this one of these 15,000 piece puzzles you put together?
Well, it's been so much fun to see it develop as it goes, because each time we get together, the piece changes, and we literally just got the final score yesterday, and we both just celebrated because we're at this point now. It's been so much fun to see it develop. And one of the things we were reflecting on earlier is that the more personal it gets with Cory, the more powerful and the more universal at the same time. And so this last iteration, at our last workshop, he sent me the libretto, just the poetry, and I was going over that, and I was getting choked up, and I was, just the beautiful stories. And some of this stuff, I've known Cory a long time, but I didn't know these stories, these personal elements. I'm like, Cory, did this really happen? And he was like, yeah, it needed to happen. And I was looking at it, I think over breakfast or something like that. And my son was like, "Are you crying?" And I'm like, he's like, "Are you?" No, he asked, "Are you sick? Do you have the sniffles?" And I was like, "I'm. These are happy tears, right?" Yeah. Because I was reading this and just sharing in my friend's experience with that, and so I think that's going to be a really powerful element, because and I think that was part of that workshop experience, is that he was encouraged by outsiders to be like, no, this needs to speak more to your experience, and then in a way to speak to our human experience.
Chris, I'm sorry, go ahead, Cory.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and I did get, in the final workshop that we had, that same choir member that came up to me and said that it wasn't specific enough, now did say, this is very specific, and this is very clear, and this works. So a mission achieved.
Yeah. Well, listen, Kristen, this is in your wheelhouse, workshops and feedback and all that business. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I had a question about that actually, because having, been in master chorales and things like that and whatever, when I was in vocal school, how long is the rehearsal process? And this is like a one-off performance, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've had 4 different workshops that have been about 2.5 hours each one.
Okay.
And then we start our first official rehearsals on the process with all of our singers present and that kind of stuff. And we'll do 6 rehearsals, 2.5 hours each. So it is a very compressed time scale. We have some of the best, singers in San Diego, some great musicians that are just, they're game for this kind of thing. And they've done a lot of this type of thing, but it is a short, scale. And now that we have the piece, I'm like, oh, we got to record this. We got to do more with
Absolutely.
it. So
There's also an art installation aspect to it
Yes.
too that we want to mention.
Please. Yes.
A part of this, well, it was fun talking about how this has expanded over time. Originally it was just going to be a couple choral pieces, but now it's this huge piece. Plus, we have this art installation that I'm doing. This is also a part of the California Arts Council grant that we got to do this project.
Very cool.
And I wanted to create a piece that was that kind of brought all different senses to the experience, right? So we have the musicals, the oral sense, right? But then I also want there to be a visual and a kind of a tactile experience as well for these people. So I'm creating an art installation along with the concert that people can experience during the concert or, before or after. And it's basically, again, another reflection on this idea of queer spaces or safe spaces and the importance of having that space. So I'm excited to unveil that too and have people experience that as well.
So without trying to do a spoiler alert on this, what medium did you use for the art? Is it mosaic? Is it fencing? Is it sandpaper?
It's definitely fencing, right? I didn't even know that was an artistic media, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's a large-scale interactive art installation. So it's made out of found objects, and the concept behind it, queer spaces, like I said, safe spaces, but the concept behind it is the idea of a blanket fort that you would build as a child.
Oh, cool.
So I'm actually using found material from around San Diego that has been used. So the materials itself will have its own story and its own history. Bringing all that together, constructing this piece out of these, different objects found around the house, blankets, chairs, that type of thing, that people can then go inside and experience what that feels like to have that space constructed for them where they can feel safe and they can, and experience that together.
I just think that is so beautiful. This idea, because like as a kid, when you build your own blanket fort, which I think is a universal experience, that is your own space. And so I think that's so beautiful.
And it's a space that you've created yourself. It's not a space that has been given to you.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think is a another form of privilege, having that space given to you. But to be able to have to create that space yourself, especially to find a space in order to survive, I think is really a powerful and definitely a universal experience to the queer community for sure.
Yeah. Well, who hasn't been in a blanket fort when they were a kid, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing it with a literal blanket or, when something was delivered to the house, you make a fort out of the box the TV came in.
That's right.
Yeah. Right? Forget the TV. I want to play with the box and all that. I know you have a question.
I do, yeah. Juan Carlos, I wanted to kind of turn it to you and have you talk about how, the organization partners with different San Diego community organizations.
Absolutely. That is one of our, points of pride in that we try to, almost all of our concerts deal with a certain topic. And so we try to find another organization that, really speaks to that topic. And we're really excited because this time we have a group called Rainbow Spaces. And their whole mission is to provide safe spaces for the marginalized LGBTQ plus community, primarily in the South Bay, but they expand all over the place. So we're really excited to partner with them. They're going to be, participating with us in the concert, and we're going to try to do some combined events.
Yeah, the next time you're on, besides bringing talented folks like Cory on with you, why don't you bring in one of the partners?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we always love to highlight that. How do people get tickets to the June 1 shindig?
The best place to do that is on our website, www.sacraprofana.org.
That sounds good. Cory, any final comments?
No, I'm just very thankful to be here and very thankful to be able to collaborate with Juan and the choir.
Well, we're honored to have you. How about you, Juan?
Yeah, same thing. Just so grateful for this process.
Yeah, exactly. Kristen?
No, I'm excited to actually come to one of your performances one of these days, and thanks for the great work you do.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely. I always love having SACRA Profana on. Juan Carlos Acosta, the artistic director, Dr. Cory Hibbs, a composer, lyricist, and artist. It'll be June 1st at St. Paul's Cathedral. It is All We Need is Meditations on Queer Being by Dr. Cory Hibbs. You will not be disappointed. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.